Hey homeschoolers, I'm Melissa Webb, former full-time classroom teacher and homeschool mom turned full-time business CEO and encourager to homeschool families everywhere. I am determined and dedicated to helping you in this journey that you're on. Yes, I want to give you sound, educational, practical tips at the same time making sure that you're enjoying the family journey that you are on. So if you are looking for a place to be encouraged and inspired, you have found the perfect podcast. Homeschooling is a work of heart is truly the perfect place to start. So welcome. Let's jump in.
Hello, friend. I hope you are all doing well. I am getting over a cold. This just happens to me. After a lot of big events, we had my mother-in-law's memorial in November. We had a big group for Thanksgiving. And after all of the things, I have this letdown moment. Does this happen to you? And I feel like my immunity just gets attacked and I end up with a cold. So if I sound a little nasally today, please forgive that. But I have a really important episode this week that I think you're going to enjoy. Although I must start with something personal. One of the kindest compliments that I ever received from listeners like you is that even if we've never met, you tell me that it feels like we have. And that's so sweet. That really touches my heart. Part of that may be because I show up every week, so there's that consistency, but I'm always my genuine self. Like what you hear is the real me. I'm learning as I go, and I just bring you along with me. And I will tell you that on that journey comes the 50-50 reality that we call life. It's full of ups and downs. The ups are so great. I love the ups, and I do my best to be present and fully engaged in the up moments, right? The beautiful moments. But life is not only mountain peak, it can also offer dark valleys too. And this week I have been walking through another valley. I feel that 2024 had too many valleys for me personally. On the 11th at 11 a.m., our sweet, so sweet, 15-year-old Australian Shepherd, Ginger, passed away. There is such a void. There's just a massive void that I am feeling right now. She was a family member. You pet lovers, I know you feel my pain. I know you do. It's going to take some adjusting. And this is the first podcast that I am recording where she is not right here at my feet. And I miss her. I miss her selfless laugh and her constant companionship. Dogs are such special creatures, and Ginger was one of a kind. I know we all say that about our pet, but I know you get it. And it's just a lot. I'm just going to be so vulnerable here for a moment. My kids have grown up, and 2 of the 3 have left the nest, and they're building their own nests as it should be. And I'm so excited to watch their grown-up lives beginning. It's really fun. My in-laws, though, have also left our lives. After 90 years on Earth, I mean, that's great. What a long, beautiful life. They have left us with so many beautiful memories and traditions, and we're going to keep them alive, and their memory is alive. But now I've lost my precious pup. It's just a lot for a big heart like mine to handle. I am handling it, but I'm also not going to pretend that I'm super happy today. I'm not. I am moving forward, and I am cherishing the gifts that I've been left with and the memories and the moment. All of these things do make my life so beautifully story worthy. You hear me talk about story worthiness. All of our lives have story worthiness, and I'm grateful. My life isn't perfect. Your life isn't perfect, and that's never been the goal. Our lives are meant to be story worthy, and they are. They are worthy of so many stories to be shared and to be remembered and to be told. So I just wanted to share that. Like I said, I am me when I show up here. I don't pretend to be somebody else. It's just me sharing a little part of my life with you. And so, with that, I want to move into this week's episode, which I have titled Rise Up. Sharing stories and our written versions of those stories just fills my cup to the brim. I love stories. I love stories from all people at all ages, from amateurs to professionals. And I will tell you that working with homeschooling families and young writers is the best job I could have ever hoped to have had. I mean, I've loved all the jobs that I've done around teaching. I have so many great experiences there. But having my own business and really delving into what I love most, the written word, and getting those thoughts out of our brains and onto paper is just fabulous. But it too comes with peaks and valleys. Last week, I had a parent email me. A student that's in our clubhouse was upset. And so the parent emailed and was understandably concerned about her child's hurt feeling. It was regarding a comment that another student had left on his essay. He had put his essay, typed it into the Google Doc, which we ask all students to do. And then he left, and he chose to, he left comments on, meaning he put it out there and people could comment on it. And we encourage that. We encourage editing, peer editing to be happening, and to be kind about what you say. But the other student had highlighted a paragraph that he had written. In the comment box, that student, she had typed in, I would take this whole paragraph out. And the parent had said that really, hurt his little heart to have somebody say that. Now, this writer, for many decades now, I wouldn't interpret that comment as hurtful, but I have thicker skin. And I'm a very curious person. Like right away, I'd have been like, oh, really? Why? I love that paragraph. Tell me why. Tell me more. What do you not like about it? I would have wanted to create a conversation there, but that's me. And that's after years, decades of experience. So I could also see how a younger writer could have found that to be very discouraging or disheartening. So I decided, after talking with the mom, we had a great conversation. She was amazing. I told her, let's really step back here and see this for the learning experience that this is. I think this is wonderful that this happened, which I know always shocks people when they hear me say things like that, but I mean it. I'm like, yay, we have a problem. Let's talk about it. Let's create a solution around this. She was very open to that. And that went really well. I decided from there, I need to hold a class meeting and record it and then share it with the parents. And the thing is, so many parents thanked me. They wrote back and were like, we had such a great family discussion around this. We talked for quite some time about it. It was a very helpful perspective. So I was like, oh, well, if they all found it valuable, maybe I should share that as my next episode. So here you go. I hope that you apply it to your parenting and your teaching and your interaction with your children, but maybe even also apply it to yourself, because we're always sharing our thoughts with one another in conversations, in social media outlets. It just happens in email exchanges. And two things are going on. Either somebody is speaking to you or you're speaking to somebody else. And so there are two things that I hold my young writers accountable for. Two things. Okay. Number one, to always speak with purpose and intention with thoughtfulness. Okay. So really intentional speaking. The second thing that I hold my young writers accountable for is being mindful of the thoughts they're creating when interpreting that feedback. So let's talk about both of these in more detail. I'm going to talk about the first point for speaking with purpose and intention. But first, I'm going to share a quote. We rise by lifting others. We rise by lifting others. I shared that with my class, and I asked them to tell me what they thought that meant. And so take a moment and just think about those words. We rise by lifting others. Now, it had an image that I shared with them of these two climbers scaling this very steep cliff, and one on the top and the other reaching down to pull his or her partner up. And so I had them think about that. What does that mean to rise by lifting others? And they all got it. Some were saying, well, it's about being kind and supportive, and that when we're kind and supportive, we not only lift up another person, but we feel good in doing that, meaning it's a win-win. And it is. I was explaining to them, it's both a literal and a figurative quote. And I love those kinds. So literally, it is true. Those two climbers were literally, when one was reaching down, as soon as that climber decided to rise by lifting the other one, he rose to his full height and the other joined him next, right? He's standing next to him. So the one being helped did rise, but of course the person standing now also rose. Great. But what I love is the deep figurative part of it. Because when we encourage someone and we say things like, I believe in you, or I can tell how hard you've been working, I'm impressed, I'm proud, you're not just helping them feel good about themselves, but doesn't that feel good too? It's innate in us. We do feel good when lifting other people up. So we become a better, stronger person, kinder person, at the same time, bringing them along with us. So how do we connect that to writing? Well, writing is not something that should be done in isolation. I mean, you get your thoughts down in isolation, but hopefully those thoughts create conversations later on, or it's a written piece that you put out into the world. So you're going to get some kind of feedback. How we receive that feedback matters as well. First off, I'm going to talk about the power of that constructive feedback, because if you can just imagine you've poured your heart into a piece of writing, okay? And you share it with someone, and their response is, I don't get it. Or in the case of the student, I would take all that out. That can hurt, right? You're thinking, ouch, well, that's discouraging. And it also doesn't tell you really how to improve, does it? I mean, that's the most important thing that I said to the students. I didn't feel that what the student said, I would take that paragraph out, was hurtful. And I know the student who said it, and she's a lovely human being. She would never do something mean or hurtful to one of our students. I know her. It just wasn't all that helpful, which tells me as a teacher, I need to coach better and help my students be better editors. And so I gave them some examples. I said, what if instead she had written, hey, are you saying that because 68% of parents give an allowance, all parents should do so? I just want to make sure I'm understanding your point, right? That's so much better than I don't get it. Do you feel the difference? Do you hear it? The first response of just, I don't get it, would shut a person down if they weren't equipped for that kind of feedback. But the second option, where you're asking a question, are you saying, let me make sure I understand? That's opening dialogue, and it's thoughtful and it's intentional. And that is better editing. So we had a great discussion in the class. But as writers, I explained to them that we must take time to offer helpful feedback. That's an important thing as a writer, because it helps you when you read somebody else's work and you don't fully understand what they're saying, that's great for you as a writer to see, oh, if I'm not understanding that in his writing, I need to be more careful in my writing. So it is a win-win there. And it is important to practice writing and editing other people's writing. And I will say this, not everyone is a natural editor, but I do think everyone can become an excellent editor just by understanding what it is I'm sharing. You want to be clear and specific and kind when you speak words, especially when they're reflecting somebody else's thoughts or opinions. So again, instead of saying something like, just take that paragraph out, I suggested something like, hey, I'm noticing lines 1 and line 4 feel very similar. You might want to consider revising one or eliminating one, deleting one. But what do you think? Get that conversation going. Or instead of saying, it's okay, but not great, again, and I don't think that's mean, but also don't think that's helpful. Instead, I suggested saying something like, I believe if you used a stronger word like responsibility instead of job, your academic writing's going to sound more polished. Say something like that. That's way more helpful than just, it's okay, but not great. You have to tell us why it's in your mind okay or not great. And I tell that to the students too. Remember, when somebody gives you feedback, that's just their opinion. You do not have to agree with them. If somebody says, this paragraph doesn't land for me, I don't really love this paragraph because blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, you're the writer. And you can say, thank you for your feedback. We're going to have to agree to disagree. I love that paragraph. It's staying. So that's important as well. When we speak, make sure that you as the parent are giving helpful feedback to your children, and make sure that when your children are maybe doing some peer editing, that they too are being super helpful in the responses that they give. It really not only helps everyone become a better writer, but it actually helps us become better thinkers too. Because we really have to consider, before I say you're wrong, we have to know why we're going to say that. What in your mind is making you think that's wrong just because somebody doesn't have the same opinion that you have? Let's be more helpful in what it is we're saying to one another. And again, yes, you can take this beyond just writing. This can be relational. Okay. The second thing that I talked about in this class meeting was how important it is to manage your thoughts as a writer. Now, this is the other side of the equation. This is when you're receiving the feedback. Sometimes I have had feedback that stings. So I get it. Your brain wants to jump to something like, oh, they didn't like my work, or they didn't like my writing. Or in the case of many children, they'll say, that was so mean. But here's the thing. Most people are not trying to hurt another person. I mean, there are those cases out there, of course, we know that. But I mean, in the world we live, the people that we allow inside our world, our tiny world, they just haven't learned how to give good feedback. That's really what's happening here. And that's what I explained to this parent. I do not believe that student at all was trying to be hurtful. That student just didn't know how to be more helpful. So as the person receiving the feedback, it's important to not let those kinds of comments be seen as discouraging. So we have to train our brain. The brain first is going to want to say, ouch. And then we say, no, 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 I want to get curious instead. So I told all of my class, if somebody gives you feedback like, I don't get it, did you know you could turn around and ask them a kind question like, oh, what part didn't make sense to you? I'd like to know more. Or if they say, I take that out. Yes, why? Why would you take that out? And again, you don't have to agree with them. You could be like, I'm just curious. Thank you for your input. I'm leaving it as is. And here's why that is so important. Our thoughts are going to shape our experiences. They just do. So if we want to interpret every piece of criticism as a personal attack, It's going to be challenging to get past that and grow as a writer because we're taking it as a personal dig. We don't want to do that. But if you can approach feedback with curiosity and grace, you will always find an opportunity to grow and improve. Again, yes, this absolutely connects in relational ways as well. So just kind of keep that in mind as you move forward today in the conversations you have or emails you receive, all of that, or a social media post that you read. Okay. The bigger picture that I left all of my students with was this. I believe that writers are amazing people. They are the bravest of the brave because they have decided to take their thought that they've created in their minds and expose them by putting them out. Whether they speak them, write them, they're putting them out into the world for everyone to read. And even if that's a small little piece of the world, it takes courage. I just tell my students all the time how proud I am of them for being so brave and courageous to put their work out there and share it with others to see. Here's the other thing I know about today's kiddos, and I tell my students this all the time. They are so kind and thoughtful and full of incredible potential. This generation gives me so much hope for the future because one day these tremendous young people whom I have the privilege of teaching, and it is a privilege. I thank their parents for trusting me in this little part of their life's journey. They're going to become the leaders of our communities and our cities, maybe even our country. And the words that they are writing and willing to share, the way they lift others up with those words, as creators, of course, but also as editors giving feedback to others, it's going to matter. So I ask them to commit to, one, an intention lifting others up, and two, being mindful of their thoughts and rising to even greater heights. Writing is more than just putting words on a page. It's about connection and understanding and growth and stories and sharing those stories. So whether you're giving feedback or you're receiving it, or maybe you're just putting your story into the world, I want us all to remember this great quote: "We rise by lifting others." So rise up and ride on.
Well, thanks so much for tuning in and listening this week. Hey, if this was something that you found valuable, don't forget you want to subscribe or follow so that every time a new episode is dropped, you'll be the first to know. And hey, before you go, if you are looking to get some of this academic writing under your belt and outsourced so that it's one less thing, freeing you up to enjoy more time with your family, hey, you're going to want to head over to writeonweb.com to see what kinds of resources and materials I have available for you. I will look forward to seeing you there, and I will look forward to seeing you here in our next episode. Right on.